cool the way he's brought this lineup as we get straight into game number 1 as a Druid mirror in terms of classes, but couldn't be further apart in terms of archetypes and styles overall. Control is going to be playing the... it's going to get very, very weird very quickly. Control playing the aggro Druid, and SHRoyalBaiZe, she's going to be on the Jade Druid. And yeah, as you said, the Jade Druid outside of a Living Roots and 2 Azure Drakes isn't too different from what you would see on ladder in Standard as well.
Right, you know, I call it kind of an old school Jade Druid because it's very much what the pre-rotation Jade Druid looked like, just with the addition of those Primordial Drakes, which are going to be a huge, huge bonus in this matchup. Now, historically, aggro Druid has been a deck where it was extremely resistant to AoE because you had natural Death Rattle minions with Haunted Creepers, Nerubian Eggs, etc. But you also had Soul of the Forest. But now Control has actually sacrificed Soul of the Forest from this deck in favor of Living Mana, the new real power card that comes out.
Yeah, and there's a card in his hand that terrifies me when I come up against an aggro Druid in Wild. It's Jeeves. Like, that card is nuts. For anyone who isn't familiar with what this does, it's a 1/4 for 4 mana, and at the end of the turn, it draws 3 cards. It draws up to 3 cards, so you end up the turn with a total of 3. And it does the same for your opponent. But the problem is, you really need those cards as the aggro Druid, and a lot of the times it doesn't make enough of a difference with your opponent having the card draw, and also you get to use those cards first because it happens at the end of a turn, so it goes back to your turn with a full hand.
Yeah, it's basically doing the job that some people, in very fringe cases, are using Genzo the Shark to do right now in Standard format, but much, much better. It's immediate, which is the really big important thing.
And the real problem as well is, you know, Genzo has the same health, but because this board is so sticky and there's often stuff on the board by 4, and it's still there, it is actually very, very hard to kill off Jeeves as well as everything else. We do see Control using the Golaka on the Pirate there, just to get a little bit bigger, and SHRoyalBaiZe is just going a little bit slow. Gonna get some ramp in there though, just to start edging towards this Behemoth and the Drake.
Yeah, and I feel this is a pretty comfortable matchup. Control will be happy to have seen this one come out first and foremost, because Jade Druid, and Druid in general's big weakness is just removal. They don't have high quality AoE. Swipe is often just not good enough when there's all these buff effects pulling your 1 health minions above 1 health. Wrath, Feral Rage, all these kind of cards are just much, much too slow to trade on a 1-for-1 basis with a deck that's swarming against you. So the one thing that you're really pegging your chances on is a lot of ramp into Primordial Drake as Jade Druid. And as I mentioned before, that is a better win condition in this matchup now because Soul of the Forest isn't there to reset your board once it gets AoE.
What's scary for me here, if I'm SHRoyalBaiZe, is this ogre of a crab at this point. As a 6/7, that is now going to be hard enough to remove as it is, because removing a wide board is always hard for Druid, but even like, you know, removing this singular minion, there doesn't appear to be a mulch in the list.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you do get mulch back now, now that we're playing in Wild again, but SHRoyalBaiZe has chosen not to go for that card in the spot.
And I think this is an interesting part as Control goes face. Yes, sorry, I just got interrupted by that massive smack to the face there. But for me, it was one of the very interesting parts about Wild is the deck building. You have access to some of the most powerful combinations of cards. You still only have 30 cards available in your deck, right? So you have a lot of powerful tools to choose from, but you don't always have the room to actually fit them all in. So missing a mulch here, and this 8/9 is going to be a bit of a problem. But now with a bit of a board, and Swipe, and Wrath, maybe SHRoyalBaiZe can get it done. But never mind.
Since there's lethal on board, Raven, that
I actually
seems
didn't see the Savage draw.
Yeah.
I was too busy looking at you when I was talking to you, Sol.
Well, that is a mistake. I know I'm a beautiful, beautiful man, but please try and keep your eyes off me and at the job at hand.
I'll do my best. But Control off to a very, very quick win here to get 1-0 up versus SHRoyalBaiZe. He seems pretty relaxed, and I think we've discussed already about players, you know, first tournaments or just feeling a bit nervous. You know, it's a pretty big deal. You're in top 8, single elimination.
Yep.
But Control, we saw him a little bit yesterday. We saw him today. Super relaxed, just laid back, having a laugh with us. You know, just having fun.
Yep.
And I think that's actually a huge strength in a tournament like this, and in any tournament, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, this is obviously his first big major tournament, his first Blizzard exposed tournament, but as a deck builder and as a community figure, he's been out there for a very long time. We called him Mr. Wild, and he really, really is. When this Blizzard announcement came out that the tournament was going to happen and people started playing Wild to fight to the top 64, people were very much net decking Control's lists, right? Because they were jumping into a brand new format. And it's decks like this, like he really had the optimal build of Wild Aggro Druid for the longest time that people were just copying card for card. And you can see now a comparison of how that Control list lines up against the Aggro Druid that we see in Standard.
Yeah, and we even see some small differences, you know, Hungry Crabs not being in the list because, frankly, you know, there are so many more deck choices that, you know, Murlocs being in Paladin actually isn't just 100% given at all. We just saw a match with, you know, the token Paladin aspect, and that just doesn't play Murlocs. So you see a cut like that, but also, you know, Hydra, Genzo being changed for just more reliable early board and stickier boards in general.
Yeah, so many interesting decisions in that deck list. Like Firefly only being good enough to be a one-off is crazy when you look at Standard. And there's Echoing Ooze in that deck as well, which Echoing Ooze and Firefly are actually the same card in a way when you think about it, but Firefly has added flexibility. You can play half of it on turn one. You can't do that with Echoing Ooze. So it's a little weird that it's a 2-1 in that order.
Yeah, I just think the buffs, though,
Mark of the Wild, there is a copy of Mark of the Wild. But Aggro Druid is over and done with. RoyalBaiZe is going back to the Jade Druid, and it's Pirate Warrior time for Control. This is a matchup in Standard that is slightly favored towards the Jade Druid, but the addition of the power of Ship's Cannon in Wild
is frankly ludicrous.
It is frankly ludicrous, yes. But I'm actually a big fan of like those kind of things happening, right? Like you look at Pirate Warrior now, this list that Control's running as he draws patches and looks very miserable about it. Ship's Cannon, South Sea Captain, like these are cards that were competitive jokes in Hearthstone for a very,
100%.
very long time. And now they're like amongst the most powerful cards in the format. Not just any format, the completely open format where any card is playable.
Yeah, and I think as well, you know, you said, you know, Control was not looking too happy about this patches draw, and understandably so, but he actually pulled a bit of a face when he saw he was up against the Druid again. So even that, I think, in Control's mind is like, okay, this one might be a bit tougher than I thought it was going to be, because I still think Jade Druid has a good shot versus Pirates, especially because RoyalBaiZe managed to get that living mana. Living Roots.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting names of cards already. You know, the Living Roots early on is so important, and now into Wild Growth with Innovate Iron next turn. And if RoyalBaiZe can just stay just on top of this game, she can actually take it.
I was actually watching Control without his knowledge, just from afar. No,
his bedroom.
That started weird and got weirder. But I genuinely was watching without him knowing I was watching over his shoulder. He was playing a couple of Pirate Warrior games backstage just to warm up. His weapon management is about as good as anyone's I've ever seen. There were some turns where he wasn't killing a 2-2 with his War Axe because he understood which turn he was going to upgrade his weapon, right? So he was just holding back, and he was giving the opponent the chance to Mark of Yasharaj or Mark of the Wild and Enchanted Raven, just because he understood the value of his weapon management. And it's skills like that with Pirate Warrior that can actually break these kind of situations where a bad player will just say, all right, fine, I drew patches, I can't win, right? But it's that extra few percent that you can squeak out by being a good player that can get you out of these kind of games alive.
Yeah, I think as well, in the last few months at least, Control's high legend finishes in Wild have been because of Pirate Warrior, because he's experimenting with a lot of decks, and there's so much you can do in Wild, but every single time Control's like, Pirate Warrior is just the best deck in the format. You know, overall, everything else needs to line up against Pirate Warrior, and that's when you know there's a king pretty much knocking around the jungle there.
Yeah, there was one season where I climbed very, very early in Wild as I was starting to get some preparation in for this tournament. And I think I ended up being like the second or third person to hit Legend on NA that season. And one of the people that I kept running into was Control. And he was the only person I kept running into that was playing Pirate Warrior. So he, because of that kind of matchmaking thing in Wild, I had to pay that consideration towards Pirate Warrior. And Control just likes being that guy, right? He likes being the guy that you have to plan around, right? He'll ask the questions. If you don't have the right answers in your deck, then sucks to be you.
And it's definitely easier to do as Pirate Warrior. But now he is at least even-ish on board, pretty much behind, because the 3-3 can actually just trade next turn. Not now that the captain's down, though. But RoyalBaiZe is doing a good job of just hanging on here. Next turn is going to be a little bit rough for us. She runs into that Jade Druid issue, no matter what format you're playing in, is that you can just run out of cards, but swipe. That's a good one.
Can we have that noise again, followed by a lion roar?
Grr.
Good. Good work. Good effort.
Thank you. Thank you.
Like it.
Sometimes on demand. You asked very nicely.
Going to choose to make a kind of tempo play here with the Earthen Scales, just gain less armor than she could do later on in the game, just to try and get a bigger push on board right now, which does make sense. It allows her to use her mana a little bit more efficiently in this spot. But the swipe on its own is just a little bit awkward because you kind of want to trade into the captain first to put the patches down to a 1-1 so you can then swipe the board away. But to get a value trade while doing that, you have to use the Earthen Scales. So I think that's the thought process that SHRoyalBaiZe is going through right now.
And I think that's completely fine, actually. If you try and wait with Earthen Scales in this matchup, you probably lose.
Yes.
The only thing she has to consider is what's going down next turn, because currently she has nothing to do next turn except from hero power. But you've got to think most of the draws in the deck will be playable on turn 7. So she's probably just confident that she'll just have to just sort of stumble through turn 7 a little bit and then just make the big power play of Primordial Drake. Here comes a guy you might have missed, everyone's favourite Murloc, Sir Finley Murgleton.
Yeah, these are the kind of spots as Pirate Warrior where you really need an Arcanite Reaper, which is not in the wild build, or at least the build that Control's running, or a Death Spite, right? Like something to just push massive amounts of damage over a couple of turns. This is where maybe even the wild build of Pirate Warrior actually suffers in comparison to its standard counterpart, because it can't just push pure damage when it loses the board quite so effectively because the Arcanite Reapers aren't there.
Yeah.
What it is much, much better as is just always having the board because of Ship's Cannon.
Yeah, it's normally better at never getting to that point anyway, right?
Right.
Fandral, not actually terrible. The 5 health means that it's probably going to stick around on the board for at least a turn or two, get some trades into pretty much any minion that's played, and then the Drake, and it looks like SHRoyalBaiZe managed to... yeah, I like it.
Go fast.
Oh, wow, okay. Very defensive. I actually would have liked it. Life tap as well. Like, what are you afraid of at that point? But
there's not even any Mortal Strikes in Control's deck, so you don't even have to worry about activating that.
Yeah, we didn't see Ship's Cannon, and what we will say is, if that Corsair was any other pirate or there was a weapon equipped, Ship's Cannon gets some work done, guys. It's kind of ludicrous, but now no true surprise here. Here comes the Primordial Drake. It's probably gonna... Oh, interesting.
There's a Spellbreaker. Wow, that's a very strange turn to go face after the previous turn.
Yeah, I thought it would have been, if anything, the other way around, right?
Right, and the face attacks are actually very, very important in this spot. It's not just us, SM Orc go face,
I mean, it is me, but sure.
All right, well, I actually have a serious point, which is Sir Finley gave life tap to Control, right? So the more aggression, the quicker clock that you can put on, the more you limit his ability to draw cards. So I would have liked the face attack on the previous turn, where you're only exposed to taking 1 damage from the Finley. But in this spot, if there's a Spellbreaker, you're just potentially eating another 4.
Yeah, and these lists are open, right, as well, so the players are aware of their opponent's list. So SHRoyalBaiZe will be fully aware that there is a Spellbreaker knocking around somewhere. And look at the size of Control's hand here. Maybe he is playing it a Control style.
So Control spent a significant amount of time there just towards the end, counting on his fingers. I think he was counting outs in his deck that would put him in a more favorable position.
Or seconds till he conceded.
That too, but he could have just spent his mana as he had it, just Spellbreakered the Primordial Drake, pushed a little bit of damage, and been in an okay spot. But he obviously felt his position was bad enough that he went for the out from his deck, didn't get it, tapped himself just into lethal position, just had to concede in the end.
Yeah, and SHRoyalBaiZe just managed to hang on. It was very, very close at a few moments, just making it to turn 8, and we can check out her Druid deck. And just some of the points you were mentioning earlier about how exactly it lines up versus Standard.
Right.
And you see it is very similar, just with a few small changes. -1 scales, +1 living roots, for example, is a small one. But we saw then the living roots actually, a Fiery War Axe went into one of those.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy.
Right, 1 Earthen Scales, 2 Auctioneer in this build as well. The reason the reason double Auctioneer became so standard in Standard is first and foremost you lost Drake, so your card draw was limited because of that. And then secondly, because you had double Earthen Scales, you had so many cheap spells on demand to be able to consistently run with double Auctioneer. So double Auctioneer in the wild list is a little interesting to me, but of course it's also the card she's chosen not to include, which interests me as well. There's no Mulch. Yep. Which actually put her in a good spot, for example, against Pirate Warrior, where you don't really want a Mulch, you want more of the anti-aggro cards like the Feral Rages and the Earthen Scales. So, deck building is not just about which cards you include, but in a format as powerful as Wild, it's about which of the 60 incredible cards you can put in your deck you choose to leave out.
Yeah, I do think I like the cycle the as in like the gadgets end, because in Wild, decks are very extreme. You have the aggro decks, which will do crazy things and kill you on turn 3. But the control decks are extremely control.
Yeah.
So having extra gadgets in means it's less likely that you run into the issue that Jade Druid generally does in Standard as well, of having that mid to late game with just very few cards in hand. Because in the control matchups, you often have time to use the gadgets ends out.
Welcome to Wild, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
We finally got down to business. Pirate Warrior versus Pirate Warrior. Ship's Cannon versus Ship's Cannon. The RoyalBaiZe drew patches.
Yeah, but RoyalBaiZe has the coin, which is very important. You will probably very quickly understand, if you haven't played this deck already, how important Ship's Cannon is and how important how it's played. A lot of the time in Pirate Warrior, you used to just go in 1, 2, 3, go face, you know, as fast as possible. But in Wild, you can actually start off your game, in a sense, at turn 3, at turn 4, potentially.
Yeah.
Because if you go Cannon, Pirate, or Cannon, you know, N'Zoth's first mate into patches, that is 4 minions, 1 is a 1/1 charge, and a weapon, and 4 random damage, well, 2 sets of 2 random damage on the board. So you can just snowball from that 1 point and just take the game. So when these players choose to use Ship's Cannon, will probably decide this game.
Yeah, a huge chunk of the time when you're playing Wild Pirate Warrior, you actually just don't play N'Zoth's first mate on turn 1 because you have Ship's Cannon in your hand.
Exactly,
and then that's
exactly.
Insane to then fire off the N'Zoth's first mate and the patches off the Ship's Cannon later on. And it's very possible that you're going to see that exact play. Oh no, sorry, Dread Corsair in hand as well is a vastly superior play.
Here we go.
Chose not to weapon swing first, just aiming to get one of his 2 shots into that 2-3 and be able to trade off with the patches. Very wise sequencing, I think, there from Control, and no surprise, as we said, the Wild specialist, the specialist of all specialists in the Wild format, and a man that does like a good Pirate Warrior game as well. So he's probably seen those situations countless times at this point.
Yeah, and look at the difference between the weapons, right? A difference between a Fiery War Axe being equipped and a Rusty Hook is a world of difference here. And like I said, you even see RoyalBaiZe not doing anything that turn, just, you know, passing effectively with the tap, because what she now needs to do to respond, if she's even got time, is to go like Cannon, Pirate Coin, Pirate, and hope it's enough. The Death Bite, along with the Corsair, might... Will that get it there? 3...
You living in Dream World, Raven?
No. No, it's not really going to get there.
This game's done so. I don't know what lines you were finding, but
it was just with like the Corsair having like have to trade into the 3/4.
Right.
But any pirate drawn, we can see Leroy, of course. So we know it's a done deal. And again, like the difference between the War Axe, right? Holding that War Axe and not preemptively attacking, just saying, oh, just hold on to it, means that, well, this Corsair, the only taunt in the deck, just gets cleaned up.
Yeah, and RoyalBaiZe just kind of... I like the way she did play. She understood she fell behind, so she then understood that she had to have the Ship's Cannon swing turn to be able to catch back up again. She tried to wait that 1 extra turn to get her back into it. It may have looked a bit stupid because she then pretty much immediately lost the game
definitely
afterwards.
Wasn't, though,
but she needed that chance. Then that 1 turn passed by. She saw that Control's play was just way too aggressive to have the Ship's Cannon swing turn against. So she went for the one and only defensive play she could, as Control has the only real, the pensive look on his face, just saying, yeah, you know, Pirate Warrior.
Yeah, and this is what we see in Wild, and, you know, we can have a look at Control's Warrior deck versus the standard version.
Control Warrior.
I know, they threw me off before.
LUL.
So I was looking through lists, and the first list I decided to look at was Controls, because we cast him first.
Yeah.
I glanced, I was like, 4 Control decks. Okay, so I flipped to the next, I was like, what? These aren't... Oh, it's Control's list.
4 face Control decks.
Exactly.
Raven. And I mean, the big talking point here is the Ship's Cannon. Really, building Wild Pirate Warrior is about which cards do I not want to play so I can fit Ship's Cannon into my deck, right?
Yeah. I think as well, like, one more is Finley.
Sure.
Just because that card allows you to win late games and you know, games you sort of shouldn't win with whatever hand you've got. You can live tap, you can hunt a hero power, even ping is very powerful, just like it was not too long ago. So that was Control's deck, but I think we can check out RoyalBaiZe's Pirate Warrior deck and see a few differences. There is an Arcanite Reaper.
Right.
There is no Spellbreaker, but other than that, at a glance, I think they're pretty similar.
Looks about right, yeah. Still has obviously the core of the deck alongside that ship's cannon that we were talking about, but it's kind of the Naga Corsairs, the Mortal Strikes, Arcanite Reapers go out for Deathspite in various ratios depending on your preference. We see that's the big talking point between the two wild deck lists that we look at, but the pirate core of the deck is still very much the same. You just have access to a couple more incredibly powerful tools.
I do love that, like, Mortal Strike is a scary card, right? You have to play around the health total, you can just die to it because it skips taunt. Not good enough for Wild, friend. You know, like, it doesn't get there. But we're going to be moving on to the next game and potentially match point if Control can take this. It is the Combo Priest versus RoyalBaiZe's Quest Rogue. And what I will say, I'll say a quick word about the Priest, because a European player called Sippy, is almost the Control of Europe, basically. So he was telling me about...
People know who Control is.
Yes. A lot of the pros know who Sippy is.
No, I agree. I'm just trolling.
Yeah. Or controlling.
Hey!
But they were telling me about this deck, and I was like, okay, I mean, I get it. Divine Spirit, Inner Fire, sure.
Yeah.
But then Silence Priest came along in Standard, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, oh, this is Silence Priest, but all your minions you play can attack without being silenced.
Yep.
This deck's good, like, and it does stupid things, mainly because of that dude there, second from the left, Deathlord. You just win games off that guy.
You do indeed. And as I mentioned, I was talking to Control and saying, hey, this Priest is your slowest deck. It kind of actually looks like the odd one out versus your triple aggro lineup that you have otherwise. He said, nah, don't worry about it. I'm still going to kill him on turn 4.
Yeah, confidence, I like it.
Yeah.
But RoyalBaiZe is playing the Quest Rogue, not too dissimilar from the standard version, except there are the target dummies in there, which are pretty huge as well. Still vanishes, still Mimic Pod, still pretty much everything. It's just, what is the cut, actually, for target dummy?
It's like Swashbuckler or Tar Creeper.
Yeah. It's that flex spot, right?
Right. I mean, it's hard to say what the, quote, standard list of Quest Rogue is that you want me to tell you what the substitution is, but yeah, there's no Swashbugglers, there's no Tar Creepers.
Sounded like excuses to me, Sol.
Hey, I'll give you excuses all day.
Okay. This is also one of the last farewells of Quest Rogue as we kind of know it, because of course the nerf is going to be coming in, so you need to bounce 5 times. But for now, for RoyalBaiZe in this match, it's only going to be 4.
The deck so tilting that it actually made Brian Kibler angry in public.
First time I've seen it. It was scary. I mean, yeah, okay, not angry. Kibler bullies me all the time, but not in anger. I hope. But yeah, that was a kind of great. This is what I mean, right? A lot of decks just cannot kill a Deathlord reasonably well.
Right.
Pirate Warrior is actually one of the few that can, because of the weapons, because of Korkrons, because you kind of should have the board early anyway. And you actually get benefits of that because you can pull a Pirate, you can pull Leroy, for example. But a lot of other decks just... When I was playing Wild, I just couldn't kill them. And then the Deathlord can just win. Already, that's what, 18 damage.
He's circling as well.
Oh,
he's getting even higher than that. And he's just going to make one beat stick right now. Just make the 13-13.
I mean, it's 2-turn lethal.
Yep.
It just sets up 2 turns. And how is RoyalBaiZe supposed to deal with this? There is no Vanish available.
How about that?
Not enough mana for Vanish. But Glacial Shard is just a PogChamp at this point. It's exactly what she needed to just not die. Not even win. Just not die this turn, but she can't bounce it.
Yeah, and RoyalBaiZe herself actually kind of had the dream hand this game. She mulliganed into Shadowstep Brewmaster, which is pretty much the nuts. That's the hand that just says, all right, draw a minion, and then you're good, right?
Yeah.
And then the first minion she drew was Novice Engineer, which allowed her to start bouncing through her deck and actually cycle at the same time, which is why she has such a good hand size right now. So in terms of Quest Rogue draws, RoyalBaiZe actually had a very high percentage draw, but Control just put on so much pressure early. Like I said, Control was just saying, yeah, this deck just sometimes just kills people on turn 4.
And honestly, even if this was any other minion except Deathlord, there would be not as much of a problem. But just Deathlord exactly and its problems of actually being able to deal with it are so insane. Like, I actually played against this deck a lot when I was like laddering, you know, High Legend, and I actually just sat and was like, I don't know how to beat this deck if they don't whiff. You know, it was like I played Paladin, like similar to the Token Paladin we saw in the last series, and it was like, well, I guess I mulligan for equality and then just hope. the options here. Velen's chosen another wild card that helps in this deck as well. Just a absurd amount of health, plus the attack as well, means that even just jumping it on any minion creates a threat.
Yeah, Control once again going back to his finger counting here. He can make another 8/8 out of this Cabal Talon Priest.
And this is it, right? The Shadow Visions in the deck as well is insane because it just makes the deck even more powerful potentially than it already is. There's the Shadow Word Pain to go through for 8.
Oh my god, I was about to say, RoyalBaiZe's play on the previous turn looked very, very strange to me unless she was going to potentially pick up Bouncer or Preparation. She was just trying to find a way to fight for board presence. She got the prep, but she's still that one activation short on the quest. So close.
Yeah, one short. Because, you know, suddenly, once you've got a board full of 5/5s, maybe you can deal with this, especially because the Deathlord will kick out another minion. So you could maybe get a charge again and, you know, carry on that kind of cycle. But we can see that it's going to struggle. She's got enough damage. I guess she's got enough damage to kill the Deathlord. I didn't actually sit and count because the patches the boars.
So 1, 2, 3, the boar and the boar goes in. She gets target dummy off the Deathlord, and then she's still dead. So I'm not quite sure.
I think this is just, let me see what I get off Deathlord.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, I've done this before.
If I'm going to go out, we're going to go out in style, see if I can get the glorious meme of a target dummy. Nope, unlucky.
Imagine if the quest could be procced with a bouncer, though. Like, suddenly that would have been huge, because the prep. If there was a bouncer as well, the quest was procced.
Oh, she'd had a bouncer.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, suddenly, she's got a board full of, like, 5/5s, and then even if she ended up trading one off into, like, 8, you know, she trades some off, she gets another one, and it was deckhand, 2 boars as well. Like, that would have actually been